Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Earlier this week, we talked about the story of the multiplication of the loaves and fishes. We are spending 3 weeks looking at stories of thanksgiving and gratitude in the Bible, and sometimes we might be surprised at the time people have given thanks to God in the midst of threat and danger. And other times we have discussed that someone gives thanks in a story we know well, but the other events overshadow the gratitude, and all we see is the miracle. The loaves and fishes is an example of that. We get so caught up in feeding more than 5,000 with a sack lunch that we overlook that before it happened, Jesus gave thanks for even this meager morsel. Today's story is much like that. We get so caught up in the events that we fail even to notice the thanks. However, the gospel writers didn't miss it, and if we look, the thanks is there. Today we are going to talk about the raising of Lazarus. This is an elaborate story found in the 11th chapter of John. Jesus had special relationships with some people when he walked on earth, just like we do, and one particular family were some of his close friends. 2 sisters, Mary and Martha, and their brother Lazarus. Well, it turned out that Lazarus died, and a few days later Jesus arrived in town. And that's when the story takes a turn that I think we can be grateful for. One sister, Martha, the practical one, met Jesus as he neared the town, and in her grief she almost seems to accuse and blame Jesus for her brother's death. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died," she said. And in response, Jesus engages Martha in a theological discussion about who Jesus is and the salvation he offers. This discussion ends with Jesus affirming that he is the resurrection and the life. Then, a little farther on, Jesus encounters Mary, and she too says the exact same words as her sister. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." But this time, they seem to come out as from a broken heart, lost in sorrow and grief. And with Mary, Jesus weeps. That's where I think we can be grateful, because the 2 sisters said the same thing to Jesus, but each came from a different need, and Jesus met them where they were and led them forward from that place into newness and hope. In the same way, Jesus meets us where we are and embraces us in love. Then Jesus asked to go to the tomb, and you know what happens. How Jesus told them to roll away the stone, and Martha, ever practical, warned him that there would be a stench. Still, they did it, and before he called Lazarus out, maybe you've never noticed this, Jesus prayed. The text says, "And Jesus looked upward and said, 'Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here so that they may believe that you sent me.'" Now, I think there are several things there to take note of. First, before he did this miracle, Jesus himself drew close to God in prayer. And maybe that's good guidance for us, an encouragement for us to draw close to God in prayer always, and especially in challenging times. But I also think we ought to notice the thanks Jesus offered. It wasn't, "Father, I hope you hear me." No, it was, "I thank you for having heard me." Jesus assures us that God's ear and heart are always attuned to us, and Jesus knew that God hears all of our prayers. So this prayer, in essence, is thanking God for hearing and being responsive to our prayers. We may thank God for many things, but maybe something many of us have overlooked is thanking God for the gift of prayer, for the gift of drawing near to God, for the blessing of feeling God near and knowing that God listens and God cares. It's truly one of the greatest blessings we have. Thank you, God, for always hearing us. Thank you, God, for always being near. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.